Cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Peter. So this talk is mostly, I'm going to spend the first 5-10 minutes going quickly through the talk he gave at TPAC, which kind of goes through the web install API, what we think of it, and like what the state is. And then hopefully we'll have a good 20 minutes or so for general discussion and questions. So yeah, I'll be going through this a little bit quickly. So do feel free, kind of once the questions come around, if you want me to go over any of it in a bit more detail. So, whoops. Web install API, we've got the explainer up at that GitHub. It'll be along the bottom of the screen for the next few slides in case you want to go and load it up. Outline of the talk. I'm Peter. I work at Google on the mobile web install team. And yeah, we basically want to get your ideas, get your thoughts about this. We've kind of got a very, very rough draft of an explainer. But yeah, it's very early stages. So ultimately, the web install API is an API that allows a website to request the installation of another website. Our thoughts so far. So we've got two use cases. One is if you have a publisher with multiple web apps, they want a nice single page where you can install all the different web apps from. Alternatively, you can think of a PWA or a PWA directory, which lists many, many ones not from that publisher. Why we want to support this use case? Because it makes PWAs more valuable and more people use them, and that's generally good for everyone, or at least. The unified install pages, the advantages of this is that it encourages publishers to split their PWAs across multiple subdomains and gives better origin isolation and more granular permissions. So what are our concerns? Yeah, so there are three kind of ways we can think of who we need to protect from what. One is protecting the user from the catalog. So that is to make sure that the catalog doesn't spuriously install PWAs on someone's device. How are we going to get this permission? Is it going to be a permission? Are we going to require some browser UI? Is there going to be some kind of heuristic based on website trust determining who's allowed to install what? Protecting the user from the target website is a bit of a smaller one. We already have an installability criteria. We don't want to install websites that aren't HTTPS or meet a few other things. We don't want to fragment that criteria. So we want to make sure that a catalog can only offer to install sites that would otherwise be installed. Finally, protecting the installed website from the catalog. We don't want some nasty catalog to come along and start charging its users money to install your website where the user could easily go and get it for free from the legit source. We have a few examples of how this might work. The first one is just this magical install button that the user presses on your website and then poof, it appears on your home screen. The second one is there's kind of a bit of browser UI. This is similar to what we have today with before install prompt. One of the prime weaknesses of the previous UI I showed you was that at no point did the user actually see the website that they are installing. Whereas here, at least we've got kind of some origin attribution. And an alternate one is the try before you buy mode. So the user would hit install and they'd get taken to the website, but in a specialized browser UI, which lets the user go back to the catalog quickly if they want to. It also very, very prominently displays install. And this kind of solves a bunch of the usability and the permission problems, because essentially it's like following a link, but just displaying different browser UI. And alongside that, we've got a few open questions for what capabilities are needed. So should a website know where the user who installs it came from? This would definitely be part of monetization for app catalogs. Potentially, we could just use the referrer. Depends on the shape of what we do. Should the directory know if the user actually went through with the installation or if they didn't? this could be used as a signal for web app quality, and it could also be used to change the catalog's UI. And the biggest one is, should a app directory be able to know which web apps are already installed? You could imagine a directory having an install button and wanting to change it to launch or just remove that option entirely if the user already has it installed. But of course, this is a massive kind of fingerprinting risk. Could the website just know which apps have been installed from that website? But at that point, is it really any different to the website storing cookies or something? Cool. So that was a very, very, very quick and sped up run through of what our thoughts are. So yeah, we would like to hear from everyone else. Do you think we should do this at all? Do you think we've missed any concerns? Do you have any suggestions for good user flows? And yeah, which of the open questions are you the most concerned about? Alex?
To answer the first question, I think we should do this. So consider that a +1 for me.
Andre?
Which of the use cases you find the most interesting, the most compelling?
First is the link to the slides. Yeah, I will give that now. There we go. Which use case is most compelling? So I think from an overall, like kind of what could change the web the most point of view, it would be the app directories. This would really kind of strengthen PWAs, and kind of potentially even create a bit more of an ecosystem about them with these directories. However, when I've been talking to people about it, it seems that kind of immediately the single publisher with multiple web apps one kind of has the most immediate kind of benefits and potential adopters. Richard?
So one of the nice and interesting features of Play Store is actually that you can browse it on your desktop and then install like any app on any of your devices. Do you think that would be something that would be part of this API, or would it be like part of the user agent to provide that flow that you can, for example, like go to this API directory, or like you play this game on your desktop and then you want to continue it on your mobile, and then you have like an install button there and you can install it on your mobile and then continue from there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess we haven't really thought of the install this app to a different device use case. I would say, like kind of just knee-jerk reaction, I would say that this would be something that's up to the user agent. Kind of the user clicks to install, and the user agent, if they want to, says, oh, would you actually like to install it on your desktop instead? And yeah, we've got Riley mentioned on the chat that yeah, should something about PWAs being synced across devices. I'm sure somebody else has a bit more context to that.
I mean, the question is like, today, if you install a PWA on desktop on like a Chrome OS device, it'll also get installed on all your other Chrome OS devices. I know I'm weird. I have like 5 Chrome OS devices, but also, you know, other places you have Chrome, but we don't cross the mobile desktop boundary. And, you know, maybe we should, or maybe, as Richard suggested, we should make it explicit.
Ryan? You are muted.
Yeah, sorry. About the installability, I think you mentioned that only the website that installed the app, like the PWA, would be able to see which ones are installed or not. But I'm wondering how that would work if somebody installs the PWA directly from the, the PWA itself. Like if you have a website that lists its PWA, and then you install one of the PWAs directly rather than from the homepage, then you wouldn't be able to see whether it's installed or not from there.
No, that is true. So I do think that that last question about being able to determine whether websites are installed or not, or whether PWAs are already installed or not, is kind of a big one, and it's got big privacy and usability issues kind of either way. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. We do have, as you know, we've got the get installed related apps thing API, but that is limited to only 3 apps because of fingerprinting concerns.
Yes, I was wondering like if an origin permission would be enough here, or that sort of thing.
How do you mean?
Like requesting a user permission to be able to install apps or that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah. So will you allow this website to see all your installed PWAs and install them or something like that? Yeah, that could work. I think it's also would be one of the more, I guess, easy to understand permissions from a user point of view. Daniel?
Hi. I find the part of this around enabling sort of attribution for payments, I think really interesting, like someone being able to pay for a web app and having that work and be like authenticated, and like, you know, having the ecosystem support that, I think is really interesting. And for me, I think that seems more important than knowing if something's installed or not. I guess I don't know if it's possible for us to allow websites to display something different or like have different UI based on whether a web app is installed or not without leaking that data. And if we try, we might end up with like the purple blue link issues that we've been fighting forever. Interested if anybody has thoughts there. Maybe that's a sacrifice, but that happens where we just don't, like, these directories wouldn't be able to have that data. I think I'm more on the side of that. I think the most compelling thing for me is the cataloging and having an actual payment ecosystem allowed.
So that's like kind of literally just being able to, as a PWA, knowing which catalog led to me being installed.
Yeah, just allowing me to buy an app that ends up being a web app and having that be done in a way that it can be authenticated. So yeah, the web app would have to verify with the store that it was installed with somehow. Now that probably will be more complicated than just this API, but I think you talked a little bit about the referrer. I think at least the website at least needs to know that, and maybe there's some other way of communicating to verifying payment, or something. You know, I don't know. Maybe that isn't the right solution, but I find that really interesting. I guess my main question for the group follow-up question would be like, how would we? Is there any way for us to have app stores display something different instead of saying install, have it be grayed out or something? Is there any way for us to do that in a privacy sensitive way? Or is that basically always going to leak?
Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear if kind of people have ideas for that as well.
I think that's something that the payment what's it called? Digital asset payments. Yeah. The answer to that from them seems to be that a site would be able to discover through querying the browser, you know, which payments regime it exists in, which implies like which store it came from. I would be curious to whether they've thought about that fingerprinting concern around like blue links, purple links.
So that kind of solves the reverse problem. So with kind of what we're talking about here, of the web install API, a catalog would be able to determine if each of the PWAs are installed or not beforehand. But what the Digital Goods API would allow you to do is for a PWA to determine who installed it, and then kind of get only the payment information relevant to kind of whoever installed it. The Digital Goods API would be a good complement to this. It would really encourage this ecosystem of catalogs with a company being able to offer listing of a PWA, but alongside that, being able to handle payments and such as well.
I guess I thought that the Digital Goods API was basically what Daniel was asking about, but maybe I misunderstood his question. Daniel?
I guess I poorly did my question because I had two parts to it. One was the installed versus not installed. The other one was payments. I'm unfamiliar with our solutions there, and I just wanted to voice that I liked that we could start enabling a website to be paid for, or like an app to be paid for to have installed. Like where I could develop like a complicated video editor and be able to launch that on the web platform, knowing that I will actually not be like pirated, or it's not like it wouldn't be extremely simple for somebody to just fake install my site and have it work, and to have somehow that facilitated by the platform. So that's I think I don't know enough about the space, but it seemed like this proposal talked about that, so I wanted to voice that I liked that.
Andre, you've had your hand up for a while.
I think I just forgot to lower my hand. Sorry for that.
Fair enough. Over to Rahul.
Hey, thanks for putting this proposal together, Peter. Just on the flip side of what we just discussed, I just wanted to kind of get more detail on kind of websites charging for PWAs that would otherwise be free, and sort of like guarding, like users on the web from that scenario, and what sort of thought we've put into instances of fraud in that case.
Yeah, so I think what just as like kind of the groundwork, what I've been thinking of in this and what we've been talking about seems to be the opposite to what Daniel just mentioned, because I've been living under the assumption that people wouldn't pay for a PWA, or at least pay to access or install a PWA, but they would access or install it and then pay a subscription, because that's kind of what the model normally has been. I think what Daniel mentioned was, could we do something that would allow this as an option for PWA developers, that they don't need to go and roll their own subscription service, that there could actually be a way that somebody could actually pay for it and that would all work out fine. So that's a kind of interesting avenue and something I definitely want to explore more. But for your specific question, yes. What do we do to stop a nasty directory from saying, oh, go and install procs, it will only cost you £2, whereas you could just go to the website and install it yourself? Ultimately, I think this is not the nicest solution from my point of view, but you could see a website having to explicitly list the catalogs that could install it. And that would kind of be able to get rid of that problem. I was originally thinking you could have a block list, but unfortunately the problem then would be that the catalogs would go and spin up a new domain or something, and then happily carry on charging and installing. I do have a little bit about this. Protecting target website from the catalog. Yeah. So procs was copied and uploaded. Yeah, and we don't want people to charge essentially for access to your website, which is freely available otherwise.
Does this argue for try before you buy mode as the primary way to surface these?
I mean, I could definitely see some users still falling for it despite try before you buy mode. But I do think try before you buy mode does smooth out a lot of these kind of usability concerns and stuff like that. I do like try before you buy mode and think it works really, really well for the app catalog kind of approach, but less so for the single publisher, multiple PWA approach, because then the user's still got to visit each site and install it, whereas they already know that they want this whole suite of software and I want to just be able to click on a few buttons and have everything installed. In the catalog, so in the catalog, you could have a separate button for preview/install. Yes, definitely. I think so. The reason we'd be offering, the reason we've got try before we buy mode as kind of an alternate UI is that we think it could solve some of the kind of usability issues or abuse vectors that some of the other approaches would have. So having a catalog be able to choose whether or not to go for try before you buy mode somewhat begs the question of why offer try before you buy mode? If it doesn't make our job in implementing this easier, is there really that much more value in adding it? If you just had seamless install, would we want try before you buy mode at all? Yeah, that is true. I think it is. Sorry, John asked if you're in a store browsing for apps that you don't previously that you don't know what you want yet, wouldn't having an option between just straight out installing and previewing be a good idea? Yes, I think it would. I think at that point, I would want to. At that point, we have achieved something that seems harder to achieve than try before we buy mode. Then we'd have like the seamless install or the dialog install, which, from my point of view, seems harder to implement. So we'd have to see whether try before we buy mode adds anything more onto that. Alex raised his hand.
Yeah, I was only wondering if, for instance, you had high confidence that one store, quote unquote, was well behaved, and you didn't have the same sort of reputational confidence, if try before you buy mode could be a fallback model for clicking that link for the sites that don't have the same high confidence.
Yes, definitely. I mean, having a UI that does kind of dramatically change its behavior based on kind of confidence in the website does, I guess, bring usability concerns from the catalog's point of view. That have to design their UX so that it's obvious to the user that one of these two things might happen and it works both ways. I think also try before you buy mode could quite happily be a link type because it works that way, whereas a seamless install wouldn't necessarily kind of make sense as a link because the page doesn't navigate anywhere. Although I guess target blank doesn't do that either. But yes, that is an option, but it's definitely something that needs to be considered in the design of the API. Daniel?
I was thinking a little bit more about the install versus already installed detection, and I feel like that's something that could be designed as a like opt-in API or like a. I think we're trying to design a lot of these. Like a good permission structure would be so that the website would operate without being able to see that data, and so I could see us having like, you go to a directory and it doesn't have this information, and then you can like browse through its apps, and if you end up liking it and you want to share that information, you can, and then it'll know what apps you have installed. I feel like probably would work just fine. I think the main thing is making it work without that being shared, especially so they couldn't say like we need you to share this before our store will work. Might be a nice way to do that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. It would be good to be able to separate the two. Yeah, I think the big question there is like an app. Yeah, how much value does not having the "Can I see what's installed" take away from the overall API? I think someone raised their hand, but I can't see it in thing anymore. So if you have raised your hand, feel free to talk. Ryan.
Yeah, do you think it's useful to have the website be able to uninstall the app as well, or is install enough for the use cases that you've encountered?
So I can definitely see the parallels you've got with, again, what somebody brought it up earlier, the Play Store can do, because at the point where you're having one website being allowed to install other websites, that catalog can start taking on some additional responsibilities, like curating things and making sure they're all good quality. And yeah, at that point, they are vouching for it, and maybe the ability to kind of take away that would be nice. I think kind of practically, from an Android point of view, I don't think it's possible to uninstall another app. So technically, there's going to be some issues with that. Yeah, I think that would be an interesting kind of like little addition, but definitely nothing critical to what we're trying to do. Tell you what, just in case anyone is incredibly enthused and would like to interact on the explainer, I'll bring the URL up again. Does anyone have anything they want to fill the last minute with?